Okay, let's go ahead and create the back cushion here for the backrest. It's basically this very large cushion right here. You can see this one's a little bit different than the seat cushion simply because it's not just a rectangle. This one looks like a rectangle, but then we have this interesting piece which kind of curves and contours toward the armrest here of the furniture. Okay, so we have to try to mimic that. So it's going to be not as straightforward to make as the seat cushion that we already created. So, but I am going to create the geometry based off of the seat cushion. Okay, so I'm going to take this seat cushion here, and I'm going to go ahead and make a clone. And I'm going to rotate this about 90 degrees this way. Move this back. Move this up like this. And basically just trying to get the rough volume here of this thing. It's probably going to be something like this, and it's going to be sitting on top of the cushion there on the bottom. So it's going to end up being something like that. It's a little bit too tall though. Let me come over here to edit. I'm going to grab my transform toolbox. And if this, what I can do is I can place my my pivot point at the max in the z-axis here. Actually, I'm going to place it at the minimum, so I could scale from the bottom up like this. Just makes your work so much easier. So it's going to end up being something like this, maybe. Yeah, something like this. Okay, let me close that. Alright, so it's a little bit wide at the moment. Actually, let me grab that transform toolbox. I'm going to keep that open. That thing comes in pretty handy. Okay, so I have to try to get that contour right there, and I'm going to show you the way that I'm going to do that. I'm going to exit NURBS toggle mode. I'm going to grab that edge ring right there, and I'm going to connect that. And I'm going to say okay with that. And then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all of these vertices here on the top, and I'm just going to move them over to the side like this. Kind of go right on top of that armrest. I'm going to turn on NURBS toggle. Obviously that doesn't look too right. So I'm going to move it to about right there, but we're going to fix this. The more geometry we add, the more control we're going to have over this. So that's basically what I'm doing now. I'm adding more geometry. So I've got basically more control over this mesh. Put that to right there. I'm going to take this bottom one here, these bottom edges, vertices, move them down a little bit. Then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all of this stuff that's up here, plus all of that that's down there. I'm going to move that down. Try to get something like that. And I'm going to take all of this. I'm basically just trying to roughly shape this out. Try to get it closer to the contour there. And it doesn't have to be exact. It actually shouldn't be exact, or even too close, and you'll see why later. Okay, so something more like that. So it follows more the contours right there. Take this guy, move it down a little bit. Okay, so something more like that. Now, I don't like how all this geometry is kind of stacked up. If we look at this, notice we have this edge loop, that edge loop, that edge loop, that edge loop. They're all kind of stacked up really close on top of each other, and I don't like that, so I'm going to spread this stuff out a little bit. I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to take this that geometry and bring that up. Take this geometry and bring that up. I'm going to take this one. I'm actually going to bring that one down a little bit. Okay. Probably going to come in here, grab that edge ring right there, connect that down the middle one time, just so I have a little bit more geometry to get the shape that I want. Something like that. Alright, so we've got ourselves something that fits the profile a little bit better. Obviously a lot better than what we started off with. It's a little bit too much geometry over here. It's kind of interfering with the shape of my object. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that new edge loop that I created. I don't like it anymore, so I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to take this geometry right here and that geometry, move it up like this. So it's kind of in the middle there. And then over here, what I'll do is I'll just take this geometry, move this down a little bit like this, kind of puff it out, and there we go. That gives me the shape that I wanted right there. It's very subtle, but it does make a big difference. Okay. So I'm going to say that I'm happy with the rough dimensions of this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate the selection. I'm going to go into the top view here. Grab all of the middle edges or vertices here. I'm going to scale them out to puff this out a little bit. I'm going to take the end over here, puff that out a little bit as well. I want to puff this part out a little bit, but it's going to be a little bit hard to do from the top view, so I'm going to switch back to the perspective view. And what I'll do here is I'll select this entire edge loop that runs along the inside here. Then I'll go to my top view, and then I'll scale this out to puff it out a little bit, like that. There we go. Much happier with this. Okay. So I'm happy with that at the moment. Alright, so I've got the rough geometry for that done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate this a little bit, give it a little bit of an angle. The way that it is in the image. There we go. Maybe I'll give it a little bit more of an angle, just to kind of accentuate that right there. There we go. Much better. Okay, so there's the image. This is what we have. Not the same exact thing, but it's pretty good for giving us a rough shape. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take. Let me go to wireframe mode. I want to puff this out a little bit more. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all of these vertices here, and those vertices there, basically. So all the vertices in the middle except the ones on the bottom and on top. Okay. And I'm going to scale. But you notice that if I scale, the scaling tool is aligned with the world. It's not aligned with my couch. So how can I fix that? Well, if I come over here to my reference coordinate system, go down to this drop-down box, I could switch to local mode, or I can switch to parent mode. If I switch to parent mode, you can see how the scale tool aligned to the parent, which is the object. So I'll just scale this up a little bit like that to puff it out. And I'm going to deselect those vertices there. Then I'm going to puff it out just a little bit more. Deselect those vertices there, so I just have the ones in the middle selected. And I'll puff that out just a little bit more. There we go. Alright, it's a pretty subtle effect. Can't notice it now, but if we put in some good lighting, we'll be able to notice it immediately. So I'll go with something like this and say that I'm happy. So there's the cushion for the backrest. Okay, so this video here is done. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and start to wrap some of this stuff up.